The explosion threw Park Do-yoon across the medical bay like a rag doll. He hit the wall hard, felt something crack in his ribs, and tasted blood in his mouth. Alarms screamed through the transport ship as another blast ripped through the hull. "We're going down!" someone shouted. Do-yoon pulled himself up, ignoring the pain in his chest. He was a combat medic. Pain was something he had learned to push aside a long time ago. Around him, soldiers scrambled for escape pods, their faces pale with fear. The border skirmish had gone wrong. What was supposed to be a simple patrol near Valen space had turned into a nightmare. 3 Valen warships had appeared from nowhere, and now the human transport was falling apart piece by piece. Do-yoon grabbed his medical bag and ran toward the escape pods. But before he could reach them, he saw something that made him stop. A Velen soldier lay trapped under a fallen beam. The alien's insectoid body was crushed, green blood pooling on the floor. Its compound eyes looked up at Do-yoon with something that might have been fear. Every instinct told him to keep running. The Velen were enemies. This soldier's people were killing his friends right now. But Do-yoon was a healer first and a soldier second. He could not walk past someone who was dying. He dropped to his knees and examined the alien. The beam was heavy, but not impossible to move. He braced himself, lifted with all his strength, and pulled the Velen free. The alien screamed in pain, a high-pitched sound that hurt Do-yoon's ears. Working fast, Do-yoon applied pressure to the worst wounds. He did not know Velen anatomy well, but blood was blood. Stopping it from leaving the body was the same for any species. "Stay with me," he said, even though he did not know if the alien could understand him. The transport shook again. Through the window, Do-yoon could see a massive Velen vessel approaching. Not a warship this time. Something bigger. Something important. The last thing he remembered was the ceiling collapsing. When Do-yoon woke up, he was not dead. This surprised him. He was lying on a hard surface in a room that smelled strange, like chemicals and something sweet he could not identify. His ribs had been wrapped, and someone had cleaned the blood from his face. He sat up slowly and looked around. The room was small and gray, with walls made of some kind of metal he did not recognize. There was a door with no handle, a small bed, and nothing else. A prison cell. He was a prisoner. The door opened with a soft hiss, and 2 Velen soldiers stepped inside. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with hard carapaces that shone like dark jewels. Their compound eyes studied him with obvious disgust. "Human," one of them said. The word sounded like an insult in its clicking voice. "You will come." They led him through corridors that curved in strange ways, past Velen crew members who stopped and stared as he walked by. Do-yoon heard whispers, saw the fear in their body language. They looked at him like he was a monster. He did not understand. Humans were smaller than the Velen, weaker in many ways. Why would they be afraid of him? Finally, they brought him to a large chamber where a group of important-looking Velen waited. At the center stood one who was clearly the leader. Its carapace was decorated with gold, and it held itself with the confidence of someone used to giving orders. "I am High Commander Kathis," it said. "You are aboard the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge, flagship of the Valen Empire. You are alive only because of the life debt." Do-yoon frowned. "Life debt? The soldier you saved. He is of noble blood. In our culture, when someone saves a life, they cannot be killed until the debt is repaid." Kethis made a sound that might have been disgust. "You will stay in the lower decks. You will not speak to anyone. You will not cause trouble. When we reach human space, you will be released. Until then, you are tolerated. Nothing more." Do-yoon wanted to argue, but he was smart enough to know this was not the time. He nodded once. "Take him away," Kethis ordered. The next weeks were difficult. Do-yoon was given a tiny room in the lowest part of the ship, near the engines where the noise never stopped. The Velen crew avoided him when they could, and when they could not, they treated him with cold silence. He learned things by watching. The Valen were a proud species, organized by strict rules of caste and hierarchy. Lower caste workers did the hard jobs and were treated like they were invisible. Higher caste nobles made the decisions and expected everyone to obey without question. And above them all was the queen. Do-yoon had not seen her, but he heard the crew speak of her with something close to worship. Queen Seraphel, ruler of 40 star systems, commander of the greatest fleet in the galaxy. She was on this ship, traveling to some important meeting, and her presence made everyone nervous. He also learned why the Velen feared humans. "Your species should not exist," a young engineer told him one day. The engineer's name was something Do-hyun could not pronounce, so he called him Kit in his head. Kit was low caste, which meant he was willing to talk when others would not. "What do you mean?" Do-hyun asked. "You are wrong," Kit said. "Your bodies are wrong. You have your bones inside your flesh. You bleed red. You can survive wounds that would kill any other species. Our soldiers say you do not stop fighting even when you should be dead. This is not natural." Do-hyun did not know what to say. He had never thought of humans as special. They were just people doing their best to survive in a galaxy that did not want them. "We are just trying to live," he said finally. Kit made a clicking sound that might have been doubt. "Your species has been in space for less than 200 years. In that time, you have spread to dozens of worlds. You fight wars that should destroy you, and you survive. You are like a disease that cannot be killed." "We prefer to think of it as determination," Do-hyun said with a small smile. Kit did not smile back. The Velen did not smile at all, as far as Do-hyun could tell. Days passed. Do-hyun exercised in the cargo bay when it was empty, read books on his datapad, and tried to stay invisible as Keithus had ordered. But he could not stop being who he was. When he saw a Velen worker injured in an accident, he helped without thinking. When he found a young crew member crying alone in a corridor, he sat with them until they felt better. When the food dispensers broke in the lower decks, he figured out how to fix them. He did not know that someone was watching. In the highest level of the ship, in chambers decorated with treasures from 100 worlds, Queen Seraphil sat before her screens and watched the strange human move through her vessel. She watched him heal, help, and show kindness to people who hated him. She had lived for 300 years. She had seen many things, but she had never seen anything quite like this. "Interesting," she said softly to herself. "Very interesting." Queen Seraphil had ruled the Velen Empire for 212 years. In that time, she had conquered worlds, crushed rebellions, and watched 3 generations of her people live and die. She had seen wonders that would drive lesser minds insane, and she had survived assassination attempts that should have killed her a dozen times over. She was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix. This was something deeper, a weariness that had settled into her very soul. The endless meetings, the constant politics, the weight of 40 star systems pressing down on her shoulders every single day. Sometimes she wondered if death would be a relief, but queens did not show weakness. Queens did not complain. Queens ruled until they could rule no more, and then they died, and someone else took their place. Today, like every day, she sat in her private chambers and reviewed reports, trade agreements, military movements, population statistics, numbers and words that blurred together until they lost all meaning. And then there was the matter of the human. High Commander Keithus had been very clear in his opinion. The human was dangerous. The human was a threat. The moment the life debt was fulfilled, the human should be killed quietly and disposed of. Keithus had been pushing for war with humanity for years, and he saw this situation as proof that humans could not be trusted. Seraphil was not so sure. She pulled up the security feeds and watched the human again. Park Do-hyun, the record said, a combat medic, 29 years old by human counting. He had been aboard her ship for 3 weeks now, living in the lowest deck, eating the worst food, and being treated like garbage by her crew. And yet he smiled. He helped people. He showed kindness to those who gave him none in return. She watched him sit with a crying crew member saying nothing, just being present. She watched him repair the food dispensers, working through the night so that the lower caste workers would have something to eat. She watched him exercise in the cargo bay, his soft human body moving in ways that seemed both clumsy and strangely graceful. "What are you?" she murmured to the screen. Her advisors would say he was playing a game, being kind to gain trust, to find weaknesses, to strike when the moment was right. Velen politics worked this way. Everyone had an angle. Everyone wanted something. But Seraphil had lived long enough to recognize truth when she saw it. The human was not pretending. This was simply who he was. It made no sense. His species was young, violent, and unpredictable. They had fought terrible wars among themselves. They had nearly destroyed their own planet before escaping to the stars. By all logic, they should be cruel and selfish, focused only on survival. Instead, this human sat with strangers and let them cry on his shoulder. Seraphel made a decision. She would meet this human herself. She would understand him, or she would know that she could not understand him. Either way, she needed to see him with her own eyes. She summoned him to her private gallery at the 20th hour, when most of the ship was resting. No guards, no witnesses, just the two of them. Doyun arrived looking nervous. Seraphel could not blame him. He probably thought she was going to execute him. He bowed awkwardly, clearly unsure of the proper greeting. "Your Majesty." Seraphel studied him in silence. Up close, he was even stranger than she had expected. His skin was soft and bare, without any protective covering. His eyes had only one lens each, round and dark and disturbingly expressive. He was small compared to her guards, barely 6 feet tall, and his body looked fragile enough to break with a single blow. And yet, there was something in the way he held himself. A quiet strength that had nothing to do with muscles or weapons. "You are not afraid," she observed. "I am very afraid," Doyun admitted, "but fear is not a reason to fall apart." A strange philosophy. A human philosophy. Seraphel gestured for him to walk with her. The gallery was her favorite place on the ship, filled with art and treasures from the world she had conquered. Paintings, sculptures, artifacts from civilizations that no longer existed. She liked to come here and remember that even empires did not last forever. "Tell me about Earth," she said. Doyun seemed surprised by the question. "What would you like to know?" "Everything. I have read the reports, but reports do not capture truth. I want to hear it from someone who lived there." So he told her. He spoke of blue oceans so vast that you could sail for months without seeing land, of mountains that touched the clouds and deserts that burned under twin suns. He spoke of cities where millions of people lived stacked on top of each other, in villages where everyone knew everyone's name. He spoke of war. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years, killing millions in conflicts over land, resources, ideas. They had invented weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and they had come very close to using them. "But you did not," Seraphel said. "You stopped." "Barely," Dohyun said. "We have this saying, humanity's greatest enemy is humanity. We are our own worst problem, but we are also our own best solution. When things get bad enough, we find a way to come together." This seems contradictory. It is. We are contradictory. We can be cruel and kind, selfish and generous, stupid and brilliant, sometimes all in the same person, in the same day. Seraphel considered this. The Velen were not like this. They were consistent, predictable, ordered. Every action had a purpose. Every emotion had a proper place. Humans sounded exhausting and fascinating. "Tell me about your customs," she said. Doyun thought for a moment. "We hold hands when we are afraid. We hug each other when we are sad. We sing songs to our dying so they do not feel alone at the end." "Sing songs?" "Yes. There is something about music that makes the dark feel less dark. When my grandfather was dying, my grandmother sat beside him for 3 days and sang every song she knew. Old songs from their village, love songs from their wedding, lullabies she had sung to their children." He died smiling. Seraphel felt something strange in her chest. She did not have a word for it. "This is common among your people?" "Not exactly like that. Everyone does it differently. But yes, the idea is common. We do not let our loved ones die alone. We hold their hands. We tell them we love them. We stay until the end." They had reached the far end of the gallery. Through the window, stars stretched out in endless patterns of light. "We do not do this," Seraphel said quietly. "Valen die alone. It is considered proper, dignified. To need comfort in death is weakness." Doyun looked at her, and she saw something in his alien eyes that she did not expect. Understanding? Compassion? "That sounds lonely," he said simply. It was lonely. Seraphel had never admitted this to anyone, had barely admitted it to herself. But standing here with this strange human, she found the truth slipping out. It is, she said. They talked until dawn. Seraphel asked questions, and Do-hyun answered them honestly, without trying to impress her or tell her what she wanted to hear. He spoke of his life, his family, his work as a medic. He spoke of saving lives and losing lives, of the guilt he carried for the people he could not help. He was, she realized, the most honest person she had met in 200 years. When the first light of the artificial sun began to glow through the windows, Seraphel finally let him go. You will return tomorrow, she said. It was not a question. Do-hyun bowed. If that is what you wish, Your Majesty. It is. She watched him leave, this strange, soft creature from a strange, violent world. She did not understand him yet, but she wanted to. For the first time in decades, Queen Seraphel had something to look forward to. Every night, after the ship fell quiet and the crew went to their rest cycles, Seraphel would summon Do-hyun to her gallery. They would walk among the treasures and talk for hours. She asked questions about humanity, about Earth, about the strange ways his people lived and loved and died. He answered honestly, never trying to make humans sound better than they were. In return, she told him about the Valen, about their history, their culture, their endless wars of expansion, about the loneliness of being a queen, surrounded by millions of subjects but truly known by none. Do-hyun listened. He did not judge. He did not offer solutions. He simply listened, and somehow that was enough. But tonight was different. Seraphel had not slept properly in 30 years. It was not something she spoke of. Queens did not admit weakness. But the truth was that every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of those she had ordered killed, the rebellions she had crushed, the worlds she had burned. 3 centuries of blood weighed on her soul like chains made of iron. She had tried medicines. She had tried meditation. She had tried working herself to exhaustion every day. Nothing helped. The ghosts were always waiting. Tonight was the worst it had been in years. A new assassination attempt had been discovered that morning. One of her own advisors had been plotting to poison her food. He had been executed, of course, but the betrayal cut deep. How could she sleep when even those closest to her wanted her dead? She stood at the window of her chambers and watched the stars. Her body ached with exhaustion. Her mind screamed for rest, but she could not face the darkness alone. Before she knew what she was doing, she was walking. Down corridors, past sleeping guards, through sections of the ship where the queen never went. Her feet carried her to the lowest deck, to a small gray door that she had never approached in person. She knocked. There was a long pause. Then the door slid open, and Park Do-hyun stood there in simple sleeping clothes, his hair messy, his eyes confused. Your Majesty! He looked past her, clearly expecting guards. There were none. Seraphel did not know what to say. She had never felt so foolish in her entire life. What was she doing here? What did she expect from this human? The words came out before she could stop them. May I sleep beside you tonight, human? Do-hyun stared at her. She could see him processing the request, trying to understand what it meant. The political implications, the danger, the sheer strangeness of a queen appearing at his door in the middle of the night. She waited for him to refuse. It was the smart thing to do. Getting involved with her would put his life at risk. Anyone with sense would say no. He stepped aside. Come in, he said. The room was tiny, barely large enough for the small bed and a storage unit. Do-hyun had made it as comfortable as he could, with a blanket he had traded for and a small plant he had rescued from the garbage. It is not much, he said, suddenly embarrassed. It is more than enough. They stood awkwardly for a moment. Neither of them knew what to do next. I should explain, Seraphel began. I do not expect. That is to say, this is not about. I understand, Do-hyun said gently. You cannot sleep. You are tired and alone, and you needed somewhere safe. She felt something break inside her chest. Not painful, relieving, like a wound finally being allowed to bleed. Yes, she whispered. That is exactly it. Do-hyun sat down on the edge of the bed and patted the space beside him. Seraphel hesitated only a moment before sitting. The mattress was thin and uncomfortable compared to her royal chambers, but somehow it felt more welcoming. I have not slept properly in 30 years, and she admitted. That is a long time. I see their faces, The people I have killed, the worlds I have burned. Every time I close my eyes, they are waiting for me. Doyun was quiet for a moment. When I was new to the military, I lost my first patient. A young soldier, barely 20 years old. He had been shot in the stomach, and I could not stop the bleeding. He died holding my hand, crying for his mother. Seraphel looked at him. His face was calm, but his eyes held old pain. I did not sleep for weeks after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. I heard him calling for help I could not give. How did you survive it? I talked to someone, an older medic who had seen more death than I could imagine. He told me something I have never forgotten. He said, "The dead do not want your suffering. They want you to live well, to do good, to make their deaths mean something. Carrying guilt does not honor them. It only breaks you." Seraphel considered this. I do not think my dead would agree. I did terrible things. Maybe, but destroying yourself will not undo them. The only way forward is to be better, to do better, to make tomorrow less bloody than yesterday. They sat in silence for a while. Somewhere in the ship, engines hummed their endless song. Stars drifted past the small window. I do not know how to do better, Seraphil said finally. I have been a queen for so long. This is all I know how to be. Then learn something new. Doyun lay back on the bed, his hands behind his head. You have time. You have power. Use them differently. Seraphel looked at him, this strange human, lying on his cheap mattress, talking to the queen of 40-star systems like she was just another person. You are not afraid of me at all, she said. I was at first, but then I got to know you. Underneath the crown and the carapace, you are just tired, like everyone else. You see me as ordinary? I see you as real. That is better than being special. She did not know what to say to that, so instead she lay down beside him, careful to keep her carapace from cutting him. The bed was small, and they were close, closer than she had been to anyone in decades. Is this acceptable? She asked. Yes. She listened to his breathing, in, out, a steady rhythm, unlike anything in Valen biology. And beneath that, the drumming of his heart, strong and slow and strangely soothing. What is that sound? She asked. My heartbeat. We do not have those, not like that. Do you want me to move? If it bothers you. No. She settled closer. It is pleasant, like music. Doyun laughed softly. The sound vibrated through his chest, and she felt it against her side. I have never thought of it that way, but I suppose it is. A song the body plays from birth to death, the first thing we hear in the womb, the last thing we hear when we die. Seraphil closed her eyes and listened. For the first time in 30 years, the ghost did not come. There was only darkness and warmth and the steady drumming of a human heart. She did not sleep that night, neither did he. But she rested, truly rested. Her mind went quiet and her body relaxed, and she felt something she had not felt in so long that she had forgotten its name. Safe. She felt safe. When the morning cycle began and light crept through the window, she rose without a word. There was no need to speak. They both understood what had happened and what it meant. At the door, she paused. Thank you, Park Do-yun. He smiled, that strange, soft expression that humans made with their mouths. Any time, Seraphel. It was the first time anyone had used her name without her title in 200 years. It should have felt disrespectful. Instead, it felt like coming home. She left his quarters as quietly as she had come and returned to her chambers and slept for 12 hours straight without a single nightmare. Everything had changed. She knew that now. Whatever came next, there was no going back. It started as a whisper among the night guards. The queen's chambers had been empty during the rest cycle. She had been seen walking toward the lower decks. One brave soul had followed her, just far enough to see which door she entered. The human's door. By morning, the whisper had become a storm. High Commander Kethus called an emergency meeting of the War Council. His carapace gleamed with righteous anger as he addressed the gathered nobles and officers. The queen has been compromised, he declared. She has been spending nights with the human prisoner. Her judgment can no longer be trusted. The council erupted in clicking voices, each louder than the last. Some defended the queen, insisting there must be an explanation. Others agreed with Kethis, their fear of humans twisting into fury. Seraphel entered the chamber like a force of nature. The room fell silent. "You speak of compromise," she said, her voice cold as space. "You speak as though I am some fragile creature who loses her mind at the first sign of something new. I have ruled this empire for 200 years. I have crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. And you think one human can compromise me?" Kethis did not back down. "Then explain yourself, Your Majesty. Explain why you have been meeting with this creature in secret. Explain why you spent the night in his quarters." "I owe you no explanations. The Empire deserves answers." Seraphel stepped closer to Kethis, and even the High Commander shrank back slightly. "The Empire deserves a ruler who understands her enemies. I have been learning about humanity, studying them, the better to know how to deal with them." It was not entirely a lie, but it was not entirely the truth either. Kethis sensed the weakness. "Then prove your loyalty. Sign the war pact against humanity. Show the Empire that you are still the queen we have always followed." The war pact. Kethis had been pushing it for years. An alliance with 3 other species to destroy humanity before they could spread any further. It would mean billions of human deaths, the burning of dozens of worlds, the end of an entire species. Seraphel thought of Dohyun, of his stories about Earth, about his family, about the way humans held each other when they were afraid. "No," she said. The council gasped. Even those who supported her looked shocked. "I will not sign the war pact," Seraphel continued. "Humanity is not our enemy. They could be our ally if we gave them the chance." "They are monsters," Kethis shouted. "They are a plague that will consume the galaxy if we do not stop them." "They are people. Strange, yes. Different from us, yes, but people nonetheless. I have seen kindness in them that puts our own species to shame. You have been deceived. The human has manipulated you. Park Do-hyun has done nothing but answer my questions honestly. He has shown more honor aboard this ship than half my advisors." The room exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted at each other, guards shifted nervously, and Kethis looked at Seraphel with something new in his compound eyes. Hatred. That night, everything changed. Do-hyun was in his quarters, reading on his datapad, when the door slid open. He looked up expecting Seraphel. Instead, he saw 4 Valen soldiers in unmarked armor. "Human," one of them said, "you will come with us." Do-hyun knew instantly what this was. Not an arrest, not a legal detention. These were assassins sent to kill him quietly and dispose of the body. He stood slowly, his mind racing. The soldiers blocked the doorway. No weapons within reach. No help coming. He was alone against 4 armed aliens, twice his size. But Park Do-hyun had survived 3 years of border conflicts. He had fought in places where dying was expected and living was a miracle. He was not going to die in a tiny room on a ship that smelled like chemicals. The first soldier reached for him. Do-hyun moved. He grabbed the reaching arm and twisted, using the soldier's momentum against him. The Velen stumbled, surprised by the speed of the movement. Do-hyun drove his elbow into the gap between the carapace plates on the soldier's neck. It was a weak point in Velen armor, something he had learned from watching the crew. The soldier dropped. The second came at him with a blade. Do-hyun ducked, felt the weapon slice the air above his head, and drove his fist into the soldier's midsection. Pain exploded through his hand as it connected with the hard carapace. But the force knocked the soldier back. The third and fourth attacked together. Do-hyun fought like a cornered animal, using every dirty trick he had learned in years of combat. He gouged at eyes, struck at joints, twisted limbs in ways they were not meant to go. A blade found his shoulder. The pain was incredible, a burning line of fire that nearly made him scream. But he did not stop. He could not stop. He killed the third soldier with a blow to the throat that crushed something vital. The fourth fell when Do-hyun grabbed his head and slammed it into the wall with all his strength. For a long moment, Do-hyun stood among the bodies, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm and dripped onto the floor, red mixing with green. His hand was probably broken. His shoulder definitely was, but he was alive. The door opened again. More soldiers. But these wore the royal insignia. "Stand down," the leader shouted. "By order of the queen." Do-hyun swayed. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was rushing in to fill the empty space. He looked at the new soldiers, at the bodies on the floor, at his own blood spreading in a pool beneath him. "I think," he said quietly, "I need a medic." Then he collapsed. When he woke, he was in the medical bay. Seraphel stood beside his bed, her compound eyes unreadable. "You killed 3 of them," she said. "They were trying to kill me." They were Kethis' soldiers, sent without authorization. Doyen tried to sit up and winced as his shoulder screamed in protest. "So Kethis is making his move?" "Yes. The council is divided. Some support him, some support me. We are on the edge of civil war. Because of me." Seraphel made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Because of what you represent. You are proof that humans are not the monsters Kethis claims. If you are right, then his entire worldview is wrong. His plans for war are wrong. Everything he has built his power on is wrong. So he needs me dead. He needs you destroyed, and he will not stop until he succeeds." Dohyun looked at her. Despite everything, despite the pain and the blood and the danger, he felt a strange calm settle over him. "Then I guess we need to stop him first." Seraphel's carapace shifted, and for a moment Dohyun thought she might be smiling. "Yes, I suppose we do." The war had begun. Not between species, but within the Valen Empire itself, and at the center of it all was a human who refused to die. Within 3 days of the assassination attempt, he was walking. Within a week, he was training. The Velen doctors were horrified and fascinated in equal measure. They ran tests, took samples, and muttered to each other about impossible biology. "Your body repairs itself at an incredible rate," the chief doctor told him. "Tissue that should take months to heal is regenerating in days. This is not natural." Dohyun shrugged, then winced as his shoulder reminded him it was not completely fixed yet. "We evolved on a dangerous planet. Healing fast was the difference between life and death." "Your species frightens me," the doctor admitted. "We frighten ourselves sometimes." But Dohyun did not have time to rest. The ship was splitting in 2, loyalties dividing between Queen Seraphel and High Commander Kethis. Something had to be done, and Dohyun had an idea. He started with the guards. The Queen's loyal soldiers were brave and skilled, but they fought the Velen way. Individual combat, honor duels, each warrior acting alone. It was beautiful and proud and completely useless against coordinated opposition. "You fight like you are each the hero of your own story," Dohyun told them during their first training session. "But heroes die. Teams survive." The guards clicked their disapproval. Working together as equals went against everything they had been taught. "Watch," Dohyun said. He selected 4 of the largest guards and challenged them to attack him at once. They looked at each other, uncertain. Fighting 4 against 1 was dishonorable. "I insist," Dohyun said. They came at him, and Dohyun showed them what teamwork looked like. He did not try to defeat them. Instead, he demonstrated how easily he could control the fight by making them get in each other's way. He ducked behind one guard, using him as a shield against the others. He created confusion by attacking from unexpected angles. He never let them coordinate, never gave them a moment to think. Within a minute, all 4 guards were on the ground, tripped over each other or knocked down by their own allies. "You lost because you fought as 4 individuals," Dohyun explained. "If you had worked together, covering each other's weaknesses, communicating your moves, you would have overwhelmed me in seconds." He taught them human military tactics, basic formations, hand signals, the importance of watching your partner's back. He taught them to trust each other, to rely on each other, to see their team as an extension of themselves. It was not easy. Velen culture valued individual achievement above all else. But slowly, grudgingly, the guards began to understand. Lieutenant Yoon Hana arrived on the 5th day. Her shuttle came out of nowhere, broadcasting emergency codes and requesting immediate docking. The crew panicked, assuming it was a human attack, until Seraphel ordered them to stand down. Hana was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor that masked a brilliant tactical mind. She was officially a diplomatic liaison. Unofficially, she was military intelligence. "You've caused quite a mess, Lieutenant Park," she said when they met in the Queen's chambers. "I know. Human Command has been watching this situation develop. We're not sure if you're a genius or an idiot. Probably both. Hana actually smiled at that. Fair enough. I've been sent to help however I can. The Queen has offered an alliance, and humanity has decided to take the chance. She had brought data, terabytes of human history, culture, science. Proof that humans were not the monsters the villain feared. Stories of wars, yes, but also stories of peace. Treaties that had lasted centuries. Enemies who had become friends. They played their recordings for anyone who would watch. Do-hyun added his own commentary, explaining context that the data could not provide. This is the Moon Treaty of 2087, he said, pointing to an image of human leaders shaking hands. These nations had been enemies for 300 years. They had fought 6 major wars. Millions of people had died. But when the climate crisis hit, they realized that cooperation was the only way to survive. They worked together, shared resources, and saved each other's populations. The Valen audience watched in silence. Humans are capable of terrible things, Do-hyun continued. We have done terrible things. But we are also capable of change, of growth, of choosing peace when war seems inevitable. That is what we offer the galaxy, not perfection, but hope. Words spread through the ship. More and more crew members began to question what they had been taught about humanity. Lower caste workers were the first to change their minds, perhaps because they had the least to lose. They had seen Do-hyun help them without asking for anything in return. They had watched him treat them as equals when everyone else treated them as invisible. One by one, they began to believe. Even some of the nobles started to waver. Not many, but enough. Enough to make Kethis nervous. You are changing everything, Seraphel told Do-hyun one night. They were in her gallery, surrounded by the treasures of conquered worlds. I am just showing them another way, he said. They can decide for themselves if they want it. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy, but simple. Treat people with kindness. Trust them to do the same. Watch each other's backs. It is not complicated philosophy. It is just how humans survive. Seraphel looked at him with an expression he could not read. Is this what humanity does? Transform everything it touches? We try. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes we burn everything down. We are still figuring it out. That sounds terrifying. It is, but it is also wonderful. We get to choose what we become. We are not locked into our history. We can always be different tomorrow than we were yesterday. Seraphel considered this for a long moment. Our species does not think this way. We believe in destiny, in fate, in the path that was set for us at birth. And how has that worked out? She made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. Not well, if I am being honest. Then maybe it is time to try something new. The ship was changing, slowly, painfully, but changing nonetheless. Guards trained together and learned to trust each other. Workers began speaking up in meetings, offering ideas that had never been asked for. Nobles started to listen, some grudgingly and some with genuine curiosity. It was not a revolution, not yet, but it was a beginning. Hana watched it all with professional interest. You know this cannot last, she told Do-hyun privately. Kethis will make his move soon. He has to, before he loses any more support. I know. Are you ready? Do-hyun thought about the guards he had trained, the workers who had started to believe, the queen who had learned to hope. No, he said honestly, but we will face it anyway. That is also the human way. Hana nodded. Good, because according to my intelligence, he is planning something for the rite of passage tomorrow. What is the rite of passage? A sacred ceremony where the queen must stand alone before her people. No guards, no weapons, no protection. Do-hyun felt his stomach drop. And Kethis knows this. Everyone knows this. That is why he has been waiting. Tomorrow then, the future of the Valen Empire would be decided in a single day. Do-hyun did not sleep that night. There was too much to prepare. The ceremonial hall was the largest space on the ship. It could hold 10,000 Valens standing shoulder to shoulder, and today it was packed to capacity. The rite of passage was one of the most sacred traditions in Valan culture, a ceremony where the queen renewed her connection with her people. For this one day, the queen stood alone. No guards, no weapons, no protection. Just her and her people, as it had been done for thousands of years. Seraphel walked to the center of the hall, her carapace gleaming with ceremonial polish. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship. Thousands of eyes watched her every move. She was afraid, not of the ceremony itself, but of what she knew was coming. Kethis had been too quiet lately, too confident. He was planning something, and there was only one opportunity that made sense. But she could not back down. To cancel the rite would be to admit weakness. It would destroy what little support she had left. So she walked forward and took her place at the center of the hall, utterly alone. The ceremony began. Ancient words were spoken, rituals performed, traditions honored. Seraphel moved through them automatically, her mind elsewhere, watching the crowd, waiting. Kethis made his move at the third hour. The doors burst open, and soldiers poured into the hall. Not royal guards, but Kethis's personal forces, armed with weapons that should never have been allowed in a sacred space. "By order of the High Commander," their leader shouted, "Queen Seraphel has been compromised by human influence. She is unfit to rule. Stand aside." The crowd screamed and scattered. Some tried to run, only to find more soldiers blocking the exits. Others fell to their knees, terrified. Kethis himself strode into the hall, his armor gleaming, his compound eyes fixed on Seraphel. "It did not have to be this way," he said. "If you had signed the war pact, if you had abandoned this foolish fascination with humans, I would have let you keep your throne. But you forced my hand." Seraphel stood tall. "You are a traitor and a coward. I am a patriot. I am saving our empire from destruction. History will remember me as a hero. History will remember you as the monster who murdered his queen." Kethis raised his weapon. "Perhaps, but you will not be there to see it." He fired, or tried to. A body slammed into him from the side, knocking his aim wide. The shot scorched the ceiling instead of the queen. Park Do-yun rolled to his feet, blood already seeping from a wound on his leg where a soldier had struck him. He had come through the service tunnels, crawling through spaces too small for Velen bodies, pushing through pain that would have stopped anyone else. "You!" Kethis hissed. "Me," Do-yun agreed. The hall exploded into chaos. From hidden positions throughout the crowd, the Queen's loyal guards emerged. They had been there all along, dressed as common workers, waiting for the signal. Now they attacked with tactics they had learned from a human, working in teams, covering each other, moving as a single coordinated force. But Kethis had more soldiers, many more. The fighting was brutal. Plasma fire scorched the ancient walls. Soldiers fell on both sides, their blood mixing on the ceremonial floor. The crowd tried to flee, trampling each other in their panic. Do-yun fought his way toward the queen. His shoulder screamed with every movement. His leg was barely supporting him, but he could not stop. A soldier blocked his path. Do-yun ducked under the alien's swing and drove his fist into the gap between carapace plates. Another came at him from behind. He spun, grabbed the weapon, and used the soldier's momentum to throw him into a third attacker. He was not winning. He was surviving. There is a difference. Lieutenant Hana appeared beside him, firing a weapon she had taken from a fallen enemy. "There are too many of them." "I know. We need a new plan." Do-yun looked around the hall. The loyalist forces were being pushed back. The workers who had believed in change were fighting with improvised weapons, holding doors, buying time. But it was not enough. Then he saw it. The ceiling controls. The ceremonial lights. "Cover me!" he shouted to Hana. He ran, ignoring the pain, ignoring the soldiers trying to kill him. A shot grazed his arm. Another barely missed his head. But he made it to the control panel. The ceremonial lights were designed to create dramatic effects during important moments. Do-hyun was about to create the most dramatic effect the Velen had ever seen. He overloaded the entire system. Light exploded through the hall, blinding in its intensity. Every soldier, every guard, every Velen in the room screamed and covered their compound eyes. Their vision, so superior to human sight in normal conditions, was completely overwhelmed. The humans were barely affected. Their simpler eyes adjusted quickly to the brightness. Hana understood immediately. "Now, all forces, attack now!" The loyalists surged forward. Blind and confused, Kethis's soldiers fell quickly. The guards Do-hyun had trained worked in perfect coordination, taking down enemy after enemy while protecting each other's backs. Do-Yun himself made for Kethis. The High Commander was staggering, trying to blink away the blindness. He heard Do-Yun coming and swung wildly with his weapon. Do-Yun caught his arm, twisted, and forced him to drop the gun. "Surrender," Do-Yun said. "It is over." Kethis laughed. "One human? You think one human can stop me? I am not alone." Do-Yun gestured at the hall around them, at the guards who had learned to trust each other, at the workers who had found their courage, at the queen who had found her hope. "That is the point." Kethis looked and saw his forces falling. His soldiers were being overwhelmed, not by superior numbers, but by superior teamwork. They were not fighting individuals anymore. They were fighting a unit, a team, a family. "This is not how war works," Kethis whispered. "This is exactly how war works. You just forgot because you have been fighting alone for too long." The last of Kethis's soldiers fell. The High Commander himself was surrounded, weapons pointed at him from every direction. Seraphel walked through the carnage, her carapace scratched and burned, but her bearing as regal as ever. She looked at Kethis with something that might have been pity. "You lost," she said simply. "I was trying to save us. You were trying to save yourself. There is a difference." She turned to her guards. "Take him away. He will face judgment for his crimes." As they dragged Kethis out, Seraphel turned to Do-Yun. He was swaying on his feet, barely conscious. The wound on his leg had opened further, and his arm was bleeding freely. "You should be dead," she said. "Probably." He smiled weakly. "But I had something to fight for." "What?" He looked at her, at the guards who had become his friends, at the workers who had found their voices. "Tomorrow," he said. "A better tomorrow." Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed into her arms. Do-Yun stood at the window of the medical bay, watching stars drift by. His injuries had healed mostly. The doctors said he would always have scars, reminders of the night he had helped save an empire. He did not mind. Scars meant survival, and survival was not nothing. Behind him, the door opened. Seraphel entered, followed by Lieutenant Hana. They both looked tired but hopeful. "It is time," Seraphel said. The broadcast hall was smaller than the ceremonial chamber, but it was connected to every screen in the Velen Empire. 40 star systems, billions of people, all waiting to hear what their queen would say. Seraphel took her place before the cameras. Do-Yun and Hana stood to the side, out of view but close enough for support. The lights came on. The galaxy was watching. "My people," Seraphel began, "you have heard many things in recent days. Rumors, lies, and terrible truths. You have seen violence within these walls and heard of betrayal at the highest levels. You deserve to know what happened and what comes next." She spoke of Kethis and his plot, of the coup attempt and those who had died stopping it. She did not hide the truth or soften the horror. Her people deserved better than comfortable lies. Then she spoke of Park Do-Yun. "A human saved my life, not because he owed me anything, not because he wanted something in return. He did it because he believed in something greater than himself. He believed that enemies could become friends, that tomorrow could be better than today. That kindness was not weakness, but strength." Seraphel paused, letting her words sink in. "I have ruled this empire for 200 years. In that time, I have conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. I have done terrible things in the name of security and power, but I have never done anything truly brave until now." She took a breath. "I am proposing an alliance with humanity, not conquest, not subjugation, partnership. We will share knowledge and technology. We will protect each other from common threats. We will build something new together, something that has never existed in the history of the galaxy." The cameras hummed. Somewhere, billions of Velen were reacting to her words, some with horror, some with hope, some with confusion. "I know this is frightening. Humans are strange to us. Their bodies are wrong by our standards, their emotions are chaotic, their history is violent. But I have seen something in them that we have lost, a capacity for change, a willingness to try again after failure, a belief that the future is not set in stone." Seraphel looked directly into the camera, and for a moment it felt like she was speaking to each viewer personally. "We have a choice. We can continue down the path of war and fear, treating every other species as a threat to be destroyed. Or we can take a chance. We can reach out and see what happens when ancient enemies become new friends. I have made my choice. Now you must make yours. The broadcast ended. The lights dimmed. And for a long moment, no one spoke. Then Hana's communicator beeped. She read the message and smiled. Human Command has accepted the Alliance proposal. Officially. Doyun felt something loosen in his chest. Relief, maybe, or hope. What happens now, he asked. Now the real work begins, Serafel said. Negotiations, treaties, convincing both our peoples that this is possible. It will take years, decades perhaps. Are you ready for that? She looked at him with her alien eyes, so different from his own, and yet somehow familiar now. With the right help, yes. Hana returned to human space on the next shuttle, carrying news of the Alliance and promises of future cooperation. Her work was done, but there would be much more to do in the years ahead. Doyun stayed. It was not an easy decision. He missed Earth, missed his family, missed the sound of rain on rooftops and the smell of food from his mother's kitchen. But there was work to be done here, bridges to build, and prejudices to dismantle. And there was Serafel. They did not talk about what they were to each other. There were no words for it in either language. She was a queen, and he was a medic. She was 300 years old, and he was not even 30. She was covered in hard carapace, and he was soft and fragile. None of that mattered. What mattered was that she trusted him. What mattered was that he understood her. What mattered was that together, they had proven the impossible was possible. Months passed. The Alliance took shape slowly, painfully, with setbacks and breakthroughs in equal measure. Some Velen could not accept the change and left for the outer territories. Some humans could not believe the Velen were sincere and pushed for continued hostility, but enough believed, enough tried, enough reached across the vast gulf between species and found something worth holding on to. Doyun worked with the guards who had become his friends, training them in human tactics and learning Velen techniques in return. He helped mediate disputes between species who did not understand each other. He told stories about Earth to anyone who would listen, and at night when the ship was quiet and the stars filled the windows, he would sometimes hear a knock at his door. Serafel would be standing there looking tired and worn. The crown was heavy. It had always been heavy, but now she did not have to carry it alone. "May I sleep beside you tonight, human?" The words had become something between them, a ritual, a reminder of where they had started and how far they had come. Doyun would step aside. "Always," he would say, "always." She would enter his small quarters, and they would lie together in the darkness, listening to the hum of the engines and the beating of a human heart. She would rest, truly rest, as she could with no one else in the galaxy. And Doyun would think about how strange life was, how a border skirmish had led to a life debt, how a life debt had led to a prison cell, how a prison cell had led to a queen's curiosity, how curiosity had led to trust, how trust had led to something that neither of them had words for, but both of them cherished. The galaxy was vast and cold and full of species who feared each other. But here, in this small room, on this ship sailing between the stars, two impossible people had found something warm. It was not a happy ending. Endings were for stories and life kept going. There would be more challenges, more setbacks, more moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. But there would also be more mornings, more chances, more reasons to hope, and that was enough. Outside the window, the stars continued their endless journey through the dark. They had been burning for billions of years and would burn for billions more. They did not care about treaties or alliances or the small creatures who sailed between them. But the small creatures cared about each other, and in the end, that made all the difference. The war between humans and Velen never came. Instead, there was peace, fragile and imperfect but real. Other species watched in amazement as ancient enemies became partners. Some called it a miracle, others called it luck. But those who had been there, who had seen a human fight through wounds that should have killed him, and a queen learn to trust after centuries of loneliness, they knew the truth. It was not a miracle, it was a choice. A choice made by two people who decided that tomorrow could be different from yesterday. A human choice. And maybe in the end, that was the most human thing of all.